everyone, I'm Kelly and this is Kelly Hill Yoga, 30 Days of Yoga, Day 19. Today we are going to focus on our hips and just do so with some static postures and dynamic movements, keeping it really nice and gentle and simple today. And just remembering that whole mindset that not every day needs to be big vinyasa type practices where just lots of breath to movement and transitions. Days like today where we are very centric on a certain part of the body are really important because they do play really well into those days where we do the total body and you do more dynamic postures. You'll feel a lot more open and strong and stable, which is very important in yoga. So when you're ready, let's get started and come to lay down on our mat. Set up for Shavasana. Nice and relaxed. Just normal breath. Pull yourself in. Don't let any thoughts leave this room. Let's keep everything internal. Nice and simple, just telling ourselves to inhale through the nose, exhale through the nose. Elongating both your inhale and your exhale. Find a moment of stillness, relaxed, grounded. Just 3 good breaths to cleanse our mental palate and set our intention for today. Awesome. When you're ready, let's do a full body stretch. Reach those arms up and overhead. Find as long as you can make your body. Just pull those toes away from the tips of your fingers, as long as you can make your body. And then transition just your arms, reach that right arm over to the left. And then we're going to cross our right foot over the left. So in this cross-legged side stretch, we've done this many times in standing postures, but why not do it laying down? It's really the fun thing about yoga is it's not always in one plane of movement. Can be in multiple planes. Exhale, bring it back to center. Uncross those legs. Cross the left over the right and reach that left arm over to the right. Nice stretch in the left side body. Awesome. Gently bring that spine back to center. Bring your hips down from where they were, up over the head. Let's bring the soles of the feet to the ground. And we're just going to warm up with 3 dynamic rounds of bridge. So we will drive through the heels, lift the hips up. It's really squeezing thighs together. Exhale, roll the spine down. Nice and slow. Tailbone last to touch. Beautiful. 2 more rounds. Drive through your feet. Curl that tailbone up. Lift 1 vertebrae at a time. Just rolling up and down the spine. Waking things up. Having a slight hold at the top. Squeeze those thighs together. Exhale, roll the spine back down. Awesome. Last one. Peel the tailbone up, each vertebrae 1 at a time. Squeeze at the top, just activating, not contracting too tightly. Exhale, lower everything back down. Tailbone last to touch. Awesome. Hug the knees into the chest just to release that low back real quick. Rock side to side. Put the feet back on the mat and open up your knees out to the side for this reclined butterfly. We're only going to be here just for a moment, just to kind of just release and really get those hip joints opened up. I know this can be tense, so if you like, you can place a block under each thigh. But we're only going to be here for a moment, just opening things up in the hips. Take a nice deep breath, breathe into that low back, making sure it's grounded. Gently pull your knees back together, and then we're going to keep both knees together and shift the hips slightly to the left as you drop both knees over to the right. For this double knee or two-legged supine twist, reach that left arm out to the left and take your gaze to the left as well. Just waking up the spine now. Especially the low back with the stretch, and your low back and hips are very interconnected. Many of the muscles that cause hip flexion are connected to that low back. So sometimes when we have really tight hips, it can cause pressure in our low back. Gently bring back to center. Shift the hips a little bit to the right, and we'll take it over to that left side. So just dropping both knees over to the left, reach that right arm out, take your gaze out to that left thumb, or right thumb, my apologies. Awesome. Let's bring everything back to center. Hug the knees into the chest, release any little bit. We might have tension, we might be still holding. Let's rock back and forth. Circle the knees a little bit, just circling your hips. It's waking things up, just getting a little bit of movement. And then we're going to rock up, or you can just gradually get there to a tabletop. I'm gonna roll through a couple of rounds of cat-cow. Just waking up that spine. So inhale, drop the belly, lift the chin to the sky. Exhale, pull that belly button up to heaven, tuck the chin in. Inhale, drop the belly, cow. Really pulling those shoulders away from the ears. Exhale, roll through the spine. And just like we usually do, let's just roll through a couple on our own, matching breath to movement. When you're ready, let's just circle the hips a little. So pull that tailbone up, almost like you're trying to draw a circle with your tailbone, just the tailbone, using the hips to make that motion. Awesome. Switch directions, which can be a little weird. For me, I'm like super focused on those hips. Drawing a circle with the tailbone. Awesome. Let's come back to neutral. Lift the right knee up, keeping a nice bend. And then we're going to do some circles, just 3 circles in each direction. Making sure all this motion is from the hip, not having it from the low back or spine, just trying to keep just that femur in our hip joint. So let's transition to the left side, 3 on each side, or 3 each direction. Beautiful. Awesome. And then we'll meet back in this tabletop. Let's take the knees nice and wide. Walk the hands out in front of us and pull your hips back. really dropping down for this puppy pose, this wide-kneed puppy pose. You can have your shins parallel or bring those big toes together. Really pulling your chest towards the earth, tailbone pulled up. If able, you may rest your forehead on the mat or chin if you're a superstar. Just imagining we're pulling those hands to try and meet our knees, not actually doing so, just activating and pulling everything back. Really opening up the hips, shoulders. Awesome. Gently come back up, walk those hands back in and the knees, and then we'll shift the hips up and back to downward dog. First downward dog of the day. Whew, my hamstrings are tight today, so nice generous bend in the knees. And then let's just walk it out a little, each leg, straightening or attempting to straighten, not pushing or pressuring, just trying to straighten each leg to really wake up those calf muscles and the back of the legs, calves, ankles, hamstrings. Hang out here in this downward dog. Let's just take a moment, one nice inhale and exhale to find stillness if you are fidgeting. Inhale, breathe very far, all the way down to your tailbone. Exhale, release. Inhale, reach that right leg up. Exhale, knee to nose, gently step between the hands. If you have to shimmy your foot up there, help it up there, that's totally okay too. In this nice runner's lunge, hips nice and low, really opening up. Keep your left hand on the mat. Let's reach up with the right. Runner's lunge with a twist. And let's think about dropping those hips a little bit lower if able. Staying activated all through that back straightened leg. Awesome. Bring that right hand down. Gently lower that back knee into this low lunge. Both hands are going to be on the inside of your right foot. Chest really pulled forward, and we're going to pull those hips forward too. So we're getting a really good stretch in the front of our left hip. Should feel it just on the inside of that right hip. So pulling our hips and chest forward, and then we're going to exhale, shift the hips back, single leg split. Nice generous bend in this knee, because we're going to turn this into a dynamic movement. So nice generous bend in your straightened leg or your front leg, right leg. Exhale, bring it back to that nice high lizard or low lunge. Chest pulled forward, hips really nice and low. Exhale, pull those hips back, single leg split. Just running through a few rounds of this, really waking things up. So thinking about pulling that tailbone up to the sky, back of the room. Exhale, bring it back forward, rebending that right knee, chest pulled forward, dropping the hips nice and low. Awesome. Exhale, last one. Bring those hips back. And then rebending that right knee, chest pulled forward. Beautiful. Really letting those hips get as low as possible, opening up that the front of the left hip. When you're ready, let's transition that right foot back to downward dog. Once again, just finding stillness in this posture before we transition and take it to the left side. When we find these little time to be still in a posture, it really helps ourselves do a little mental check to make sure that we're present. Just have the mind activated. Great, and when you're ready, let's inhale, lift that left leg up. Generous bend in the knee, knee to nose, step between the hands, runner's lunge. Once again, let's make sure we're nice and set up. So hips really low, right hand stays on the mat as we lift the left arm up and overhead. Runner's lunge with a twist. Really think about sinking those hips nice and low as you can get them. Not pushing or pinching, just remembering to find that edge, not pushing past it. Staying nice and activated all down the back of that right leg, all the way to the heel, shooting energy all the way out the back of or the bottom of the foot. Awesome. Exhale, drop that left hand down to meet the right, so both hands are on the inside of the left foot. Slowly lower your back knee. Tuck or untuck the toes. It's your choice, whichever you find comfort with. And then we're going to pull our chest forward, really being proud. Nice long spine as we drop the hips down, really opening up in the right hip now, and the inside of that left hip. Try not to let it be like a back bend, but just really having it be the motion be from the hips. Exhale, shift the hips back, single leg split. Nice generous bend in this straightened leg or your left leg. Not really focused on getting everything super straight today. It's more about keeping the motion in our hips, staying nice and dynamic. Pull that tailbone to the back and up. Beautiful. Rebend in that front knee. Back to this nice low lunge, dropping, pulling the hips down. Chest forward. Exhale, shift the hips back. Beautiful. Inhale, rebend in that front knee, pull that. Let those hips open up. Exhale, shift the hips back. One more round. Rebend in that left knee. Pull the chest forward. Keep that belly button pulled in a little bit, not letting anything get too relaxed. Exhale. Shift the hips towards the back of your space. Really have that tailbone pulled up to the sky as our chest is pulled forward. Rebend in the front knee. Last time, having a nice good drop. You should feel with each time we make this motion, well, I shouldn't say should, you may feel with each time you go through this dynamic movement that you get a little bit more open in the hips. So let's go ahead and take that left foot and meet back in downward dog. Going to set up for pigeon. So we're going to keep this a little bit different. We're not going to use the momentum of lifting the leg and then transitioning it forward. So we're going to use all from the core. So staying nice and strong. Lift your right knee towards your right elbow as your right foot goes to your left wrist. And we're going to hover here for just a second and then slowly lower down. Pigeon. So if you have to shimmy or shift to kind of get positions, that's totally okay. It always takes me a while to find the proper positioning in this pose. I'm not notoriously flexible. And we're just making sure that we have both hips as square to the ground as possible, not coming on one side any more than the other. Let's stay nice and tall for just a moment. Hands really pressed into the earth in order to pull our chest up and forward. for a little bit of a back bend, and this really opens up the left hip flexor. Just like we did in that dynamic low lunge, we're just opening it up even more. And then slowly come down onto your forearms. Stack your fists. Create this nice little baby pillow and rest the forehead if able. If you want to stay up on your hands, that's totally okay too. Just wherever you feel like you can hold this posture for a few rounds of breath. Remembering to find that edge, just back off ever so much. I promise you, if you stay just behind that edge, you will find growth, strength, and stability far better than if you were to like crank or stress or push anything beyond limits. You always want to be able to still breathe through a posture comfortably. And if you feel very fidgety in a posture, that's usually, or can be, it means you might be past that edge just a little bit. Awesome. Let's come up onto the hands, and we're going to come out of the posture just as we came into it. So bring that right leg back. Transition to downward dog. Let's open up the left side now. So remember, we're not using momentum of lifting our leg and pulling it forward. We're just bringing that knee to the left elbow, all using the strength of our core, and then the left foot to the right wrist. Gently lower it down. Walk everything back if you have to, whatever you need to do to find your comfy pose. And it's not about having this shin parallel or anything. That can be a common myth. It's just if you can have your heel as close to your pelvis as you want. It's all about playing around and finding what opens you up or what feels like too much. There's no strict rules when it comes to any posture. It's just finding what feels good to you. So let's stay up on our hands for just a breath. Really think about sinking those hips down nice and square. Awesome. Gently lower down to the forearms. Let's make that little baby pillow again with our fists, if that's what you choose, and rest the forehead. Let's make sure that we can still breathe through this posture. Take a nice deep breath, breathe into that left hip. Exhale, release. Make sure you haven't started to roll onto that left hip too much. Still keeping our hips nice and square. Let's come back onto the hands. To roll out of this, we'll come onto the left hip and bring the legs out in front of us. Going to take Our left leg extended out, right leg will be tucked in, so foot right at our pelvis. And we're going to keep our hips nice and square, not reaching over for our left foot, square towards the front of our space. And then we're just going to reach down with our left hand as our right comes up and overhead. Make sure that right hip stays nice and grounded. Awesome. Gently bring it back to center. Take that right hand, place it behind your right hip, and then we're going to reach that left arm up and overhead. Just waking things up. Exhale. Bring it back down. Awesome. Let's take it to the other side. So left leg in, right leg goes out. Reach the right hand down towards that foot. Left arm up and overhead. Nice side stretch. Making sure that we're grounded in the left hip. Just here for 1 or 2 rounds of breath. Awesome. Gently come back up to neutral spine. Place that left hand behind your left hip. Reach the right arm up and overhead as you lift the hips up for this little baby wild thing. Exhale, bring everything back down. Now let's take the left leg, leave it where it is. We'll cross the right over it for cow legs. So it's okay if you have a nice big gap here. If you want, you may place a block between. Play around with how close your heels are to your hips. So if you want to bring them out a little bit, it will open you up far more if you keep them nice and close. And then let's take the left arm underneath the right for these eagle arms. You can either bring your palms together or the back of your hands. And then we're going to lift the elbows up to the sky. Just here for a breath, just to get a counter movement in our hips since we just opened them up. Let's kind of do the opposite. Release that bind with your arms, unravel the legs, and take it to the other side. So right leg is on the bottom, left leg is on the top. Cow legs, like our cow Helen. You might see her sometimes in the background throughout the window. It's our cow on the farm here. All right, so making sure our legs are nice and set up. Play around once again with those heels, having them as close or as far away. This time we're going to take the right arm underneath the left. Either bring your palms together or the back of the hands, lifting those elbows up to the sky, really getting a nice stretch in the back of the shoulders while simultaneously getting some internal rotation in the hips. Keep your spine nice and strong, so lifted proudly up through the crown of the head, belly button pulled in. Release that bind and unravel. Let's just shake out the arms a little bit. And then come to lay on our back. So I fixed my microphone, sorry. Come to lay on our back. Let's have both soles of the feet on the ground. Cross the right ankle over the left thigh and just bring that left thigh towards the chest for the supine pigeon. Won't be here long. Gently release, and let's take it to the other side. Just one last little hip opener, nothing too crazy or intense. So our left ankle is crossed over the right thigh, holding on to either the back of the right thigh or the shin, pulling it towards your chest. Let's release the soles of the feet back to the mat, and we'll just windshield wiper the legs back and forth real quick just to release the low back. Bring the knees into the chest, give them a nice big hug. Grab the outside of your feet, lift those heels to heaven, elbows transition to the inside of your knees. As we pull our feet towards the earth, we are simultaneously trying to lift those heels to heaven. Stay nice and grounded in that low back. And as I always tell you, you are more than welcome to take this time in our last posture to add any last little undo movement you feel like you might need. Any last little posture, hip opener, inversion you might want to do. Exhale, release. And let's straighten out the legs, and we'll finish just how we started, Shavasana. So let's find last little bit of relaxation with the breath. Get any last little bit of fidgetiness. Just made that word up. Is that a word? Find any last little bit of movement and wiggle it out before you find stillness. Exhale, release that low back and hips into the earth. Just focused on the breath. Staying very present. Don't leave the room yet. And like I said earlier, these body part centric practices really play nicely into the bigger picture. Number one, it gives you time on the mat to spend with yourself through self-care. And it also builds strength and stability in bigger postures. When you're ready, you may roll from one side or the other, it doesn't matter. Shift up to a seated position, legs crossed, head over heart, heart over pelvis, hands at our heart. Just close the eyes or soften the gaze and take a minute to show gratitude. Still be present, still inward. As always, thank you so much for spending this time and energy with me today for day 19. I love you. I'll see you all tomorrow.